Welcome at Pizza and More. Let's stay once more on the healthy way. My name is Jürgen and we make this time together a pizza dough from whole wheat. Well, what should I say to whole wheat flour? As the name states, the whole wheat flour is milled from the full corn of the wheat. It is including the center with lots of protein and also all the peels which are around, they are also milled. This has a very big advantage. In these peels, or in the peel of the wheat corn, there are lots of minerals and there is the fiber, which makes the whole wheat flour that healthy. But there is one disadvantage. Unfortunately, as I said, in the center of the corn there is all the protein. And now we have lots of peel in the flour, which means we have automatically less protein. And the next thing is the W value of such a whole wheat flour is also very low. The flour I have here has only a W value from 170 to 190, which is really quite low. This says our gluten structure, what we will have in our dough, is not very durable and not very stable. Therefore, we have to avoid to have a long leavening time. However, we will have to this time a leavening time of around 24 hours. But I would say this is really the maximum. 12 hours up to 24 hours, but far longer I wouldn't go with this kind of flour. However, in a whole wheat flour there is lots of taste, there is lots of aroma, which means it's not that important that this flour has such a long leavening time. If the taste of the whole wheat flour is for us not enough, we have the possibility also to work with a sourdough, so with lievito madre, or with a starter like Polish, for example. But lievito madre and Polish will follow in a different video. On the other hand, a positive thing of the whole wheat flour is, beside that it's very healthy, it can absorb lots of water because all the peels are relatively dry, and so we can add far more water than into a normal wheat flour. So this time we will work with 66%, but I'm very sure this flour can also work easily with 70%. But I make this video for everyone, and not everyone wants to use a higher hydration, because then the dough is weaker and so on. That's the reason why we use now 66%. All the recipe, or the whole recipe and the whole procedure, how we make the dough, how we make then the pizza, is noted and is written in the video description, as in each other videos as well. And now I think we start directly with our dough. So what ingredients do we have? We have here 500 grams of whole wheat flour. The name of the whole wheat flour in Italy is integrale. Here I have 330 grams of very cold water. You see here also water outside of this can, which means the water is really very cold. Then I have here 0.6 grams of dry yeast. If you want to use fresh yeast, then you can use 1.8 grams of fresh yeast. And I have here 15 grams of fine sea salt. If you want to bake or make this pizza in a normal kitchen oven, then please add additional 5 grams of honey and 5 grams of olive oil. My video where I show everything about what's important in the home oven is also linked in the video description. And now we make the dough. The first we add into the mixer is our cold water. As next, the whole flour. And then we add directly our yeast. And then we start the mixer for around 5 minutes and mix everything up. And now after the first 5 minutes of mixing, we add our salt. And then we continue mixing for around 10 to 15 minutes. We have watched the dough, and we also have to measure the temperature, that the temperature did not get higher than 25 or 27 degrees. And then we make a window test, and when the window test works, the dough is ready. Now my dough kneaded for around 15 minutes. I covered now my hands with water. You can also use olive oil or flour. And now I try to make the window test. By the way, if this test is not called window test, please write into the comments what's the real word for window test. For this test, what I do right now. Thank you very much. So, to do this test, form a ball of dough and then stretch it. And then you can see this dough is pretty good and ready. And ready to be taken out to my counter. And when the dough is now on the counter, we have to shape a nice dough ball. This is exactly the same as with the normal pizza dough as well, but we can already see the color of this dough is totally different. Also the feeling of the dough, all these peel pieces are totally different than in a normal pizza dough. But it doesn't matter, it works. As you see, I have now here a nice dough ball. To create this ball, in the first instance I did several times stretch and fold, and then I go with my little fingers under the dough and I pull the dough, and then I turn it a bit, and then I pull it again, and then I have a nice dough ball. Now it's important, we let the dough rest now for around 30 minutes. We have now the possibility either to let it on the counter and cover it with a box or with a thin foil or whatever, or as I do it now, I take my dough ball, place it in the box, close the lid, and so I let it rest for 30 minutes at room temperature. And now after 30 minutes, it's time to shape our dough balls. Here you can see our dough, and I make now 3 dough balls with a weight of around 280 to 290 grams. It depends always a bit on all the circumstances, could be a bit more, could be a bit less. You can also divide it simply by 3, make 3 dough balls. I always measure it on my kitchen balance to have exactly the same dough balls. Here you can now see my 3 dough balls which are measured. I take one and I shape now the panetti or the dough ball like we do it with every other pizza dough as well. I show you now one possibility how to make it. Some others I already showed in other videos from me. I always take the dough from the top and I stretch it here on the top, and the dough which is left over, which I stretch to the bottom, I push the dough into the center of the ball. And then I have here a very strong surface of the dough ball. And this is exactly what we need so that the dough ball stays in its shape and doesn't get so flat. And then we can put it onto the counter and turn it a bit in the hand, and then go directly always with the fingers under to stretch the surface. And then when we have a nice surface, then we control if the bottom of the dough is also nice closed, and then the dough ball is ready and I place it into the dough ball box. And this is something I do now with all the three. And here you now can see the three dough balls placed in the box. Now it's important to close the lid of the box, and now we let the dough rest. We let it rest now for 1 to 2 hours at room temperature, and then we place the dough in the fridge. Yes, of course, if we have a leavening time of only 24 hours, we have also the possibility to let the dough rise at room temperature, the whole 24 hours at room temperature. But actually it's summer. The room is warmer. In winter the room is colder. In autumn or in spring it's a mixture. So the room temperature is not really controlled. So we always have to measure the room temperature to see what amount of yeast do we need, because the amount of yeast together with the leavening time is always also dependent on the room temperature. So therefore, if I place it in the fridge I have 5 degrees, and there I know, okay, this is always the same temperature in winter, in summer, whenever. And that's the reason why I am a fan of leavening in the fridge. Okay, if I have a dough which is only 12 hours or only 8 hours, this is totally at room temperature. This is a different story. But 24 hours and upwards, I prefer the leavening in the fridge. As I said, 1 to 2 hours now at room temperature, then into the fridge. 2 hours before baking, this is then dependent on the room temperature. I would say tomorrow around 2 hours before baking, I take it out of the fridge and let it rise for the rest at room temperature. If it's a bit colder, for example, let's say only 20 degrees in the room, then we can take it out also 4 hours before baking. And if it's again a bit colder, then we can take it also 5 to 6 hours before out of the fridge. Now some words to the cheese. If you use mozzarella cheese which is in that salty water, then please put the mozzarella out of that salty water. Cut the mozzarella into sticks, put it into a sieve and let it drain. Then all the water which is in this cheese, in the mozzarella, can drain out. And tomorrow we have then, when we bake the pizza, a dry cheese and not only that soggy pizza and that soggy cheese. My dough had now a total leavening time of over 24 hours. This is something I normally wanted to avoid, let it not rise that long, but I started something to do in the kitchen and I had to finalize it, and that's the reason why it's now later than expected. However, I made already one pizza because my wife was hungry, so I made already one. And I can say the dough is very good to handle. It's a bit more dry, it's a bit more, what should I say? It's harder. This dough is a bit harder, not that elastic like a normal pizza dough, but it's good to work with. And the ingredients are also already prepared, which is clear because I made already a pizza. I have here nice San Marzano tomatoes. I smashed the San Marzano tomatoes, or I tiered the San Marzano tomatoes by hand. I added only 4 grams of fine sea salt. I mixed it up, and that's it. If you want, you can add 5 grams of olive oil and some leaves of fresh basil. This is also okay, but I follow here always the original Neapolitan way, and this is only salt in the tomatoes. If you want to know some things more about or everything about tomatoes and the original tomato sauce, in the video description there is the video linked where I explain everything around tomatoes. I have also here my mozzarella, I have some mushrooms, I have Parmesan cheese, I have olive oil, and now I would say let's start making pizza. So here you can see the 2 remaining dough balls. As I said, here is already one missing. The dough balls are not, or the size of the dough balls is not as big as with a normal dough, but this is total normal because a whole wheat flour is not rising that much than a normal pizza dough. But nevertheless, I take now one of those balls out. How to take it out and how to stretch a pizza, I have also made a own video about this. I will link this also in the video description. But in a few short words, to take the dough out, it's important to use lots of semula or enough semula, and so that the dough sticks nowhere, and then I release the dough everywhere where it's connected to something else, either to the side of the box or to another dough ball, and then I take the dough ball out and put it into a bed of semula. The remaining dough is closed and I put it away to use it later. On my counter there is already some semula, which is okay. I flip here this dough ball several times around in the semula bed, and then I take it out to the counter. I'm here very gentle to the dough. I won't stress it, otherwise it's not possible to stretch it anymore. You can see my dough ball right now is definitely not round. It has more a square shape, and now I make it round, but I'm very gentle here as well. Only with the fingertips I try to make a round shape, because I want to have a round pizza and not a square. And then we start shaping the pizza like we do it with every other pizza as well. We start from the center and press all the air towards the crust. Then we flip the pie and we do the same from the other side. And I feel already, and I have the impression that dough is not that elastic like a normal pizza dough. This dough is more hard, it's harder, and I have the impression if I'm not gentle enough, it breaks. I hope I can stretch the pizza now without breaking the pie. The first we add is our tomato sauce. As next I have here fresh grated Parmesan cheese. Then I add some leaves of fresh basil. This basil is, or these leaves from this basil are very small, but it doesn't matter, the taste is exactly the same, then I use a bit more. And as next, directly our cheese. And then I add some already cutted mushrooms. After this, some nice olive oil. And then is the pizza already ready to be launched into the oven. I put here some semolina onto the peel. I push the peel under, and then I make the final size of the pizza. And then it's ready to be launched into the oven. Here you can see the pizza oven, which is preheated to 450 degrees. I have the feeling the whole wheat pizza takes longer. And here you can see our result. I think the result is really very nice. It looks super delicious. The crust is not that thick than with a normal pizza dough, but this is clear because whole wheat flour or the dough from whole wheat is more compact than a normal dough. But nevertheless, let's try and let's cut and let's see. It's very crispy, it's fantastic, really crispy. and you can see the color is totally different, but it's full of air, and this is exactly what we wanted to have. So let's taste in the first instance the center. And here is really something different than with a normal pizza. Normally I say always, okay, in the center you taste only the nice ingredients, which is correct. This is also here happening. But here in the center I taste also the nice, delicious, the taste of the pie. It's really great. The base tastes fantastic. And now let's taste the crust as well. The taste is really different than a normal pizza. The taste is a bit like bread, but it tastes fantastic if you like bread. It's really great. It's a bit more compact because it's not that airy than a normal pizza dough, but this is clear because this total normal for whole wheat flour and for whole wheat dough. But it's really delicious. It's absolutely nice to eat, and now I'm looking forward to eat the rest of the pizza. If you want to bake this pizza in a home oven, in this video I show everything how it works to bake and what's necessary to consider in a home oven. Please bake also a pizza out of whole wheat flour. It's delicious, it's healthy. If you like my videos, then I would be absolutely happy if you would subscribe my channel, and then we see us in the next video. Ciao!